Somewhere in ancient China, more than 2,000 years ago, a young man walked for 3 days through mountain passes to find a philosopher who lived alone near a river. The young man was not poor. He was not desperate. By the standards of his world, he was actually doing well. He had studied hard. He had worked hard. He had spent years trying to become the kind of man that his ambitions demanded he become. And yet, something was not working. He could feel it the way you feel a stone in your shoe, not always sharp enough to stop you, but always there, always wrong, always reminding you that something is not right. He found the old philosopher sitting beside the river, watching the water move. He bowed, and he asked the question he had carried for 3 days through the mountains. "Master, how does a man become powerful?" The philosopher, his name was Laozi, and he would one day be recognized as one of the most important thinkers in human history, said nothing for a long time. Then he stood up slowly and walked the young man to the edge of the river where the water was cutting through a shelf of solid rock. The groove was deep, smooth. It had taken the shape of something that had been happening for longer than either of them had been alive. Laozi pointed at the water and said, "This water has no muscle, no ambition, no strategy, and yet it has done what iron could not do. It has cut through stone that would have broken the strongest tool ever forged." The young man said, "So the lesson is patience? To wait?" Laozi shook his head slowly. He said, "Patience is waiting, and waiting is not the same as working. That water is not patient, it is consistent. It does not wait for the stone to soften. It does not rest until conditions improve. It does not ask whether today's effort will be enough to see results. It moves, every day, in the same direction, with the same quiet commitment. And the stone that looked permanent and immovable and impossible, yields. Not because the water was stronger, but because the water never stopped." He looked at the young man and said, "You came here looking for power, but you have been asking the wrong question. The question is not how to become powerful. The question is how to become consistent. Because consistent men do not search for power. They build it quietly, while everyone around them is still looking for a shortcut." The young man sat beside that river for a long time after the philosopher walked away. He did not know, sitting there, that the words he had just heard would eventually become part of the Tao Te Ching, one of the most widely read texts in human history. He did not know that those words would reach across 2 millennia and land in the ears of people whose world Laozi could not have imagined. He just sat with the water and watched it move. That story is the foundation of everything we are going to talk about today, because every single truth in this video is the same truth the water was teaching. Not intensity, not genius, not the right moment or the right circumstances or the right amount of motivation. Consistency, direction. The quiet, daily, unremarkable commitment to moving forward that eventually cuts through every obstacle that looked permanent and immovable and impossible. If you are watching this and something in your life has been feeling like solid rock, unmovable, unchanging, resistant to everything you have tried, stay with me through all 10 of these truths, because the water has something to say to you. If this channel is new to you, subscribe to the Stoic Truth right now. Every week we come here and do work like this together. Real, honest, personal. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and let us begin. 1. You are not running out of time. you are running out of excuses. The first truth is the hardest one to hear because it removes the most comfortable story most people are telling themselves. The story that one day, when the time is right, when the circumstances align, when they finally feel ready, they will begin building the life they are capable of living. Seneca, who understood the psychology of human delay better than almost anyone who has ever lived, wrote something that I need you to hear slowly. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." He was not talking about dramatic waste. He was not talking about catastrophic failure. He was talking about the quiet, daily, almost invisible surrender of hours and days and weeks to things that feel easier than the direction you know you should be moving in. Think about the last 30 days of your life. Not harshly, honestly. What did you say you were going to begin that you have not begun? What conversation did you keep postponing? What decision did you keep circling without landing? What version of yourself did you keep promising was coming? Next week, next month, when things settle down. Here is what Seneca knew that most people spend their whole lives refusing to accept. Tomorrow is not a place you arrive at. It is a direction you keep walking toward without ever reaching. Every tomorrow you are promised is simply today, with a different name. And today, this one, right now, the one you are currently inside, is the only place where anything has ever been built by anyone. The Stoics did not believe in waiting for readiness. They believed in beginning before readiness arrived, and letting the act of beginning produce the readiness. The water does not wait for the stone to be ready to be cut. It moves. Every day, in the direction it has chosen, and the stone eventually has no choice but to yield. You are not running out of time, but you are running out of excuses. And the day those run out is the day your life actually begins. So let them run out today, right now, in this moment. Pause the video for 10 seconds and name in your mind the one thing you have been delaying. You do not have to share it. Just name it. Because naming it honestly is the first act of the water. It is the beginning of the consistent movement that cuts through stone. 2. The biggest battle of your life is happening inside your own head. There is something that Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal. And I want to remind you that this was a private journal, never intended for anyone else to read, which means these were his most honest thoughts about his own inner life. He wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." An untroubled spirit. This man was simultaneously managing the largest empire the world had ever seen, fighting wars at multiple borders, watching members of his family die from plague, and dealing with political betrayal from people he trusted. And the thing he was writing to himself about, the thing he considered the first rule, was the state of his inner world, not the external battles, the internal one. Here is the truth that most people never fully accept. The biggest fights of your life are not happening out there. They are happening in the 6 inches between your ears. Every morning before the world has asked anything of you, the battle is already underway. The mind is already building stories about what today means, what people think of you, whether your efforts will be enough, whether you are behind, whether this is all going to work out. And most of those stories are not descriptions of reality. They are your untrained mind filling in the gaps with the worst possible interpretation. The Stoic practice is not the elimination of those thoughts. You cannot stop the mind from generating them any more than you can stop the river from generating current. The practice is learning to see them for what they are, weather passing through, rather than truth arriving. A thought appears that says you are not enough. You notice it. You do not argue with it. You do not build a defense against it. You simply recognize it as a thought, not a fact, and you let it move through without letting it make decisions on your behalf. This is the work. Not once. Not when you feel like doing it. Every day. The same way the water moves every day. Quietly. Consistently. Without drama. And over time, the stone of fear and self-doubt and catastrophic thinking, the stone that right now feels like permanent, solid, immovable rock, begins to yield. Not because you fought it, because you never stopped moving through it. Drop a comment below right now. What is the one thought that shows up uninvited most often and steals the most from your day? Just name it, because naming it is the beginning of not being controlled by it. 3. Discipline is not a feeling. It is a decision made every morning before the world wakes up. Let me tell you about a man named Cleanthes. If you have never heard that name, you are in the right place. He was a student of Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, and he eventually became one of Stoicism's most important teachers. But here is the detail of his life that matters for this truth. He funded his philosophical education by working as a water carrier at night, hauling water from wells to homes in the dark for a few coins, so that during the day he could study and teach and build the philosophy that would eventually shape the thinking of emperors. Not for a season. Not until something better came along. For years. When people mocked him for it, because they did, he said this. He said, "Even the fields are better for being worked." He was saying, the difficulty is not breaking me. It is cultivating me. The hard thing is not the obstacle. It is the tool. Most people have a completely backwards relationship with discipline. They treat it like a feeling that needs to arrive before action becomes possible. They wait to feel disciplined before they act with discipline. They wait to feel motivated before they do the thing that would generate motivation. They wait to feel ready before they begin the thing that would make them ready. And the waiting becomes the whole story of their life. Discipline is not a feeling. It is a decision, made every morning before the day has had a chance to offer you an easier alternative. Made before the comfort of the bed has made its case. Made before the distractions have gathered their forces. The decision, I am going to do what I said I would do regardless of how I feel about it. That decision is made in the first few seconds of the day. And the man who makes it consistently, without needing applause for it, without needing to feel inspired to do it, that man is building something that no amount of talent or intelligence or luck can replicate. Because the water does not feel like flowing. It does not have good days and bad days. It does not wait for optimal conditions. It moves, and the stone yields. If you are watching this and your relationship with discipline has been inconsistent, if you start strong and then drift, if you have good weeks followed by weeks of nothing, hear this clearly. That is not a character flaw. That is an untrained habit. And habits are retrained the same way the stone is cut, one day at a time, one decision at a time, starting with the very next one you make. 4. Your circle is either building you or quietly burying you. There is no middle ground. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and became one of the most studied philosophers in human history, said something about the people you spend your time with that sounds harsh until you let it fully land. He said, "Tell me who you spend time with, and I will tell you who you are becoming." Not who you are becoming. Because the issue is not the snapshot. The issue is the direction. Think about the 5 people whose voices fill your daily life right now. Not the people you admire from a distance, the actual people in your actual daily existence. When you spend time with those people, do you come away feeling like the best version of yourself is possible? Or like wanting more than you have is somehow naive or unrealistic? Do their daily choices reflect the standards you want to hold for your own life? Or have you slowly, without quite noticing it happening, adjusted your standards downward to fit the ceiling of their expectations? Here is the brutal thing about social environments. They do not feel like influence while they are working. They feel like just the way things are. The group that spends every week talking about what they are going to do someday starts to feel normal. The culture where comfortable stagnation is explained and justified starts to feel mature. The environment where mediocrity is dressed up as being realistic starts to feel like wisdom. And you wake up one day and wonder why your fire has dimmed. And you cannot point to a single moment when it happened. Because it did not happen in a moment. It happened in 1,000 small conversations, 1,000 quiet surrenders to the level of the room you kept choosing to be in. Musonius Rufus, one of the least quoted but most practically wise of all the Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Associates who live without virtue are more to be dreaded than wild beasts." That sounds extreme. Until you understand what he meant, wild beasts attack you visibly and you can defend against them. But an environment of low standards attacks your potential invisibly, gradually, dressed up as friendship and familiarity, until one day you look up and realize you have become what you were surrounded by without ever consciously choosing it. This does not mean abandoning people you love. It means being ruthlessly honest about which direction your relationships are pulling you. And it means becoming the kind of person that builders want to be around, because you cannot attract the water's level of consistency while living like someone who moves only when the mood strikes. 5. Stop consuming to escape. Start learning to evolve. Seneca wrote, "Leisure without study is death. It is a tomb for the living man." He was not arguing against rest. He understood rest. He was pointing at something specific and devastating, the habit of filling empty hours with things that leave you emptier than before. We are living inside the most distraction-engineered environment in human history. Every platform, every notification, every recommendation algorithm has been built by extraordinarily intelligent people with one purpose: to capture your attention and hold it for as long as possible, not to serve you, to sell you. And while you are being sold to, your hours are going. Your potential is sitting in a room you never enter because you are always somewhere easier. Consuming something that felt lighter than becoming something. Think about the last 30 days, honestly. How many hours did you spend consuming things that added nothing to who you are? And how many hours did you spend deliberately building the person you keep saying you are going to become? For most people watching this, those two numbers are not even close to each other. The shift does not require a dramatic life overhaul. It requires one honest decision made repeatedly. Every hour you spend consuming something, ask one question. Is this building something in me, or is it just filling time? Not every answer has to be growth. Rest is real. Enjoyment is real. But when the honest answer is consistently just filling time, that is the moment to redirect. 30 minutes of reading instead of scrolling. 30 minutes of practice instead of passive watching. 30 minutes moving toward the thing you keep saying you are going to build. Over a year, that is more than 180 hours. Over 5 years, that is nearly 1,000 hours returned to the person you are trying to become. From the same life, without finding extra time, just by redirecting the water, pointing the current toward something that yields. 6. Clarity is not something you find. It is something you build by moving. Here is the trap that has kept more capable people stuck than almost any other. The belief that clarity is a prerequisite for action, that you need to know exactly where you are going before the first step makes sense, that you need a complete plan, a fully formed vision, a perfectly mapped route before you can begin moving. And so people spend months, sometimes years, thinking about beginning, planning to begin, researching what beginning would look like, having conversations about beginning, writing down thoughts about beginning, and they never begin. Seneca addressed this with a directness that should feel uncomfortable. He wrote, "While we are postponing, life speeds by." Not drifting, speeding. You are not standing still while you wait for clarity. You are being passed by everything and everyone who decided that imperfect action was better than perfect inaction. Here is what the Stoics understood that most modern thinking gets entirely backwards. Clarity does not come before action. Clarity is produced by action. You do not think your way into knowing what to do with your life. You act your way into knowing. You take one step with the information you currently have. You see what you learn from taking it. And the next step becomes clearer from where you now stand than it ever could have been from where you were standing still. The water does not know where it is going in any grand strategic sense. It moves downhill. It follows the path of least resistance, and it cuts through whatever is in its way not because it has a plan, but because it never stops moving. The path becomes clear in the moving of it. Ask yourself right now, not later, right now. What is the smallest possible action you could take today toward the thing you have been thinking about? Not the strategy, not the full plan. The one next step. Take it, and watch what clarity arrives that no amount of thinking from a standstill could have produced. 7. The man you are in private is the only man who matters. There is a version of you that performs for the world, the version that shows up when people are watching, when reputation is at stake, when there is something to gain from being seen a certain way. That version is real, but it is not who you are. It is what you have learned to present. Then there is the version of you that exists in private, the choices you make when there is no audience, the standards you hold when no reward is attached to holding them, the person you are at 11 o'clock at night when the only witness is you. Whether you do every time you break your private commitment, every time you say you will and then you do not, when no one would ever know, you make a withdrawal. And over time, the balance of that account determines something that no external success can replicate: how you actually feel about yourself. The man who has been making those deposits consistently, the man whose private life matches his public words, he carries something that cannot be faked or performed. He carries it in the way he enters a room without needing to announce himself, in the steadiness that others feel before he says a single word, in the quiet authority of someone who knows exactly what he is made of, because he has tested it in private, repeatedly, without waiting for anyone to confirm it. That is not confidence as it is usually described. That is integrity, and it is built entirely in the moments the world never sees. 8. Failure is not the opposite of growth. It is the raw material of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not a slogan. This is a precise, practical description of how the strongest people in any era have always operated, not by avoiding the obstacle, by treating the obstacle as the instruction. Think about every significant thing you genuinely know, not what you were told, but what you actually know in your bones, because it is built into your understanding from experience. Almost none of it came from when things went well. It came from when something went wrong, and you had to figure out what it meant and what to do next. The relationship that ended and showed you what you actually needed. The project that failed and taught you what you did not know you did not know. The plan that collapsed and redirected you toward something better than what you were originally chasing. Failure is not the opposite of growth. It is frequently the most direct path to it. The Stoics were not naive about this. They did not pretend difficulty was secretly a gift or that pain was actually pleasure in disguise. They were honest about the weight of things not working out, but they were equally honest about what the weight was producing in the person willing to carry it consciously rather than collapse under it. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism itself, lost everything he owned in a shipwreck: his cargo, his wealth, his plans, his entire identity as a merchant, gone in one afternoon. He walked into Athens with nothing. He wandered into a bookshop and picked up a book about Socrates. He read it standing in the aisle. He asked where he could find people who actually lived the way Socrates lived, and the direction that question pointed him in became Stoicism, the philosophy that would shape emperors, free slaves, and change the direction of Western thought for 2,000 years. The shipwreck was the beginning, not the end. The total failure was the door. Every failure you have ever experienced has been the water finding a new path, not stopping, redirecting. And the new path, though it does not look like what you planned, you are training the part of you that will be needed when difficulty arrives without warning and without your permission. You are building the psychological muscle that holds when life gets genuinely hard, not inconveniently hard, not uncomfortably hard, but loss hard, grief hard, the kind of hard that breaks people who have never learned to move through resistance. The man who has trained himself to act through discomfort, who has proved to himself in 100 private moments that he can keep moving when everything in him wants to stop. That man does not break when the stone appears. He moves like the water, steadily, consistently, without drama, and the stone, in time, yields. But 10. The life you want is not waiting for you to be ready. It is waiting for you to begin. I want to come back to the river, to Laozi and the young man and the water cutting through stone. After the philosopher walked away, the young man sat for a long time watching the water. And the longer he watched it, the more something in him settled into a kind of understanding that is difficult to put into words, but that you recognize immediately when it arrives. The understanding that the water is not impressive because of any single moment. There is no dramatic moment where the water finally defeats the stone. no visible victory, no celebration, just the water, moving again, today the way it moved yesterday, and the way it will move tomorrow. And the stone, gradually, impossibly, giving way. That is the whole philosophy. That is every truth we have talked about today, collected into one image. Not the dramatic transformation, not the sudden breakthrough, not the moment of inspiration that changes everything overnight. The quiet, daily, unremarkable choice to keep moving in the direction you have committed to. When you feel it, when you do not feel it, when no one is watching, when the results are not visible yet, when the stone looks as solid and immovable as it did yesterday and the day before. Epictetus said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourself." The life you are looking for is not being held somewhere outside you, waiting for the right circumstances to deliver it. It is being built, or not being built, in here, in the private decisions, in the daily commitments, in the direction you turn when comfort and purpose are pointing opposite ways. The Stoics were not people who had everything figured out. Marcus Aurelius was still fighting his own resistance every morning when he wrote about getting up to do the work of a human being. Seneca was still wrestling with the temptation to postpone living, even as he wrote his most urgent letters about beginning. Epictetus was building an entire philosophy of freedom from inside the chains of slavery. None of them were waiting to be ready. They were all already in the middle of something hard, and they were choosing, in the middle of it, to move forward anyway. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not lacking what it takes. You are simply standing where every person who has ever built something real has stood. The place where it would be completely understandable to wait a little longer, to prepare a little more, to give yourself one more week before you begin. The water does not have that conversation with itself. It does not ask whether today is the right day. It does not wonder whether the stone will yield quickly enough to justify the effort. It moves, because moving is what it does, because the direction has been chosen, because nothing, no obstacle, no setback, no amount of apparent resistance, changes the fundamental commitment to keep going. That is the only question this video was ever asking. Not whether you have what it takes, not whether the timing is right, not whether the circumstances will cooperate. Just this: will you move today? Will you take one step, make one decision, keep one commitment to yourself, direct the water of your attention and energy toward the direction you have chosen? Because if you will, if you do that today, and then again tomorrow, and then again the day after, without needing it to feel dramatic or certain or guaranteed, then what Laozi showed that young man beside the river is what your life will eventually show the world. That the stone was never as permanent as it looked, that the water was never as small as it seemed, and that the most unstoppable force in the universe is not strength or genius or perfect timing. It is consistency. Quiet, daily, unremarkable, absolutely unstoppable consistency. Begin today, not tomorrow. Today. If this video reached something real in you, if something here named a weight you have been carrying or a truth you have been avoiding, hit the like button right now and share this with someone who needs to hear it. You know exactly who came to mind just now. Send it to them. Subscribe to the Stoic Truth if you are not already part of this community. Every week we come back here and go deeper together, and the next video is already on your screen waiting for you. The stone is waiting. The water is ready. Begin.